play with us, Danny, forever and ever and ever.
This is arguably the most disturbing scene in The Shining, and while it's not inherently scary, it delivers a cold, uncanny, and unexpected feeling that lingers. This moment became the catalyst and the inspiration for much of the unsettling imagery we tend to see in Zach Cregger's films. And to me, Zach delivered that same unnerving energy throughout Weapons. For example, it's presented where Glattis is seen by James standing in the woods, and in the moment where Alex's mom silently gets in the car while Justine sleeps to steal a strand of her hair. These scenes aren't frightening in the traditional sense. Like Danny's encounter in The Shining, nothing violent or overtly horrific is happening. No one is being chased, tortured, or killed. And instead, the horror comes from simply witnessing something profoundly disturbing. And that alone is enough to leave the audience baffled and disturbed. Weapons was Zach Cregger's second horror feature, and it had the second largest opening of any original horror IP so far this year, behind Sinners. And honestly, he's slowly becoming my favorite modern day horror director, mainly because the man isn't afraid to take risk. Today, I want to analyze a major sequence from Weapons, one that meant a great deal to the director Zach Cregger, and it's the only sequence that provided the audience with an encrypted message of Zach's childhood, and that was Alex's chapter. At its core, Weapons is a film about a boy who's trying to protect his family from a mysterious witch. But the hook that got us all interested in the first place was how 17 kids from the same classroom all went missing except one. And then we go on to explore 5 individual but intertwined perspectives before exploring the source of the chaos. There's Justine, the kind-hearted, guilt-ridden teacher, Archer, the grieving father, Paul, the conflicted cop, James, the desperate addict, and Marcus, the sympathetic educator who's the main moral compass throughout the film. And of course, I don't say Alex here because Alex is the topic of discussion, and of course I didn't mention Glattis because we don't have a backstory on her yet. These 5 characters all symbolized an embodied stage of emotions that the director Zach felt while growing up in an alcoholic household, combined with processing the grief of losing a close friend. The sequence of scenes during Alex's chapter consists of 3 main stages. Alex meets Glattis, his initial terrifying introduction to the witch in her withered form. Glattis threatens Alex. She takes control, dominating the space, and Alex is left powerless against her presence. Then Alex breaks free. The encounter reaches its peak, forcing Alex to literally break from this current state of torturous submission. Along the way, I'll explain framing and transition techniques along with subtle details hidden in the dialogue that more than likely points back to Zach's personal struggles. Alex's chapter begins with strong foreshadowing as a class discussion about parasites can be overheard in the background.
Who else can think of an example of a parasite? Anyone? Lisa?
A tapeworm.
A tapeworm. Very good.
This is one of the first major clues in the film about Glattis' true nature and how she tends to operate. She is, at her core, a parasitic entity. Without external human vessels to prey on, she is unable to drain them of their energy, therefore leaving her weakened, starved, and unable to sustain her existence. And this is probably a good time for me to also talk about Zach Cregger's childhood and the Glattis correlation. So as previously mentioned, Zach was raised in an alcoholic household, and his father died of cirrhosis. Cirrhosis is a late-stage liver disease, and chronic alcohol use is the leading cause of it. He explained how he felt like alcohol entered his home and destroyed his family. And in Weapons, Glattis does the exact same thing. She enters Alex's home and destroys his happy family. And also, fun fact, the look of people under Glattis' spell was inspired by Graves' disease, a real-life thyroid disorder that can cause the eyes to bulge and the neck to swell. Zach borrowed those unsettling effects to give her victims a disturbingly real appearance, making the supernatural feel grounded in something that actually exists. Now, we'll expand more later on the Glattis and alcohol correlation throughout this video, but for now, that was just to get everyone on the same page. The day Alex has to walk home from school is technically where stage 1 begins. His parents seem drained, and Glattis is now suddenly upbeat and perky, giving us our first look at the effects of her parasitic presence.
Alex? Oh, welcome home. How are you, sweetie?
As Glattis greets Alex, it's obvious that he's smart enough to know that something is wrong with his parents. But Glattis brushes it off as though Alex shouldn't be bothered by their sudden lifeless demeanor.
You know, I haven't seen you since you were a little teeny baby.
What's wrong with my parents?
Oh, nothing, sweetheart. They're just fine.
He asked, "What's wrong with my parents?" And she says, "Oh, nothing, sweetheart. They're just fine." This is a metaphorical response from the director and writer Zach Cregger, showcasing to the audience the careless nature of people under the influence, and a personified response of the alcohol itself symbolized by Glattis, happy and cheerful of those under her influence. She's trying to persuade and project that feeling onto Alex without actually having to use any of her magic on him, but of course it doesn't work. See, this could be seen by some as an issue with the plot, as to why Glattis never uses her magic on Alex, but this would definitely have led to larger issues with the plot. And also, since this is a personal story about addiction for Zach, it wouldn't make much sense to do that, since kids with alcoholic parents don't tend to self-medicate by drinking themselves. And also, if you look closely in this scene, you'll notice that one of Glattis's pupils is dilated. This happens again at a later stage in the film once she's weakened again, and requires the strength of the 17 children. Also, Zach felt like this look simply added to Glattis's already unsettling look. I'd also like to point out Zach's directing style with the slow reveal or pan reveal shots. Now, it might not seem like that big of a deal, but there's actually a big difference between cutting to a jump scare or reveal versus panning or tilting the camera to reveal a scare. We'll take a look at jump scares in other horror movies compared to Zach's style. For example, in Insidious, there's the red-faced demon behind Josh that we see instantly after cutting back to him. Also, in Peter's bedroom in Hereditary, the film cuts between angles, and when it cuts back, you finally notice his mother clinging to the ceiling. Not wildly scary, but definitely an unsettling visual. Then you have the reveal shot, or panning reveals, where the scare is already there, but it's just not visible yet. Like the shot of Glattis on the ceiling and how she's already there, but only visible once Justine lays back down. It's similar because, like Hereditary, the scare is already there, but instead of cutting to it, we tilt or pan the camera to it. Even with James in the woods, once again, Glattis is already there, but she's only seen once James is looking in the correct line of sight to see her. And although Zach didn't invent this style, he's definitely been using it more often than most horror directors today, and he's one of the best at it in my opinion. But that now brings us back to the scene as to why I brought up the reveal shot in the first place. I've shown you the moments where Zach uses the reveal shot for jump scares, but here's where he uses it for storytelling or simply moments to make the viewer feel uneasy. Like the day before Glattis shows up, Alex leaves school and there's a reveal shot of his father there to pick him up. Even the music changes between when Alex doesn't see his father and once he's actually visible. Symbolizing how seeing his father has instantly provided a sense of peace and joy, and considering Alex doesn't seem to have any friends, his parents are displayed as all he has, like his only friends. Once Glattis shows up that night, the next day when Alex leaves school again, the reveal shot is introduced through a crowd of children. And the big detail to notice here is how this time the music doesn't change. We maintain a consistent melancholy tone without any cheerful samples being added this time. That's because there is no peace and joy provided this time because Alex is left to walk home alone. And now Glattis's first real introduction to Alex is presented in this way as well, with a reveal shot. After Alex walked home from school the previous day, Glattis attempted to fool him, which didn't work, so now she's slowly revealed in a shot of Alex coming down the stairs before he goes to school, where it's more of an honest introduction this time where she lays out the terms and conditions.
Come, sit.
This is the official beginning of stage 2, where Glattis threatens Alex. She tells him to sit and then proceeds to lay down the ground rules to keep his parents alive. She goes on to tell him what she's capable of making his parents do. And if you listen closely and really think about what she's saying, it's easy to catch the constant personified references and embodiment of being alcohol.
I can make your parents hurt themselves. I can make them hurt each other. I can make them eat each other if I want to. Do I want to, Alex?
She tells Alex that she can make his parents hurt themselves, hurt each other, and even eat each other. Now, the eat each other part was for a dramatic narrative effect of the story itself, to drive the point home. But everything else she said is indicative of someone who displays alcoholic behavior, pushing them to possibly hurt themselves and to hurt others while under the influence. The next day after Alex returns from school, Glattis tells him that there won't be any talking today, and that he'll need to feed his parents some soup that's in the kitchen. And there's an aspect of this scene that could easily go without being noticed, and that's because it's only told through visual narration, which is one of Zach Cregger's favorite cinematic story techniques. But before I reveal to you guys exactly what that is, I gotta pay some bills, so we have a quick message from today's sponsor, Manta Sleep, the creators of the world's best sleep mask and sleep accessories. Manta Sleep is all about helping you recharge, promoting better sleep and power naps so you can wake up feeling sharp, focused, and ready to take on the day. And for the nocturnal community out there and the night owls, it's even more important that we get our necessary rest after a long night of movies and episode binging. And to be honest, I'm not normally a sleep mask kind of guy, but I do enjoy listening to music or a podcast to help put me to sleep. And also when I'm traveling or just chilling at home, I hate being disturbed by someone turning on a bright light waking me up. And a lot of times when you're traveling, that's just something you really can't prevent. That's until now. The Manta Sound sleep mask is actually super comfortable to wear, and that's the one you're seeing on camera right now. And with the flat built-in Bluetooth speakers, you don't have to worry about how uncomfortable it is to lay on your side with traditional headphones or AirPods. And then on top of that, you get these relaxing eye cups inside the mask that provide 100% darkness no matter where you are without having any pressure on your eyes. And if the Manta Sound sleep mask doesn't sound like the right one for you, they have several other sleep mask options for you to choose from with some other cool color variations as well. So I think it's safe to say that at this point, Manta Sleep has made me a sleep mask kind of guy. So head over to mantasleep.com and use my code Nocturnal to get 10% off your first purchase. And thanks to Manta Sleep for sponsoring today's video. And now back to our regular scheduled programming. So now let's get back to the reveal of Zach Cregger's visual narration techniques. For example, in Barbarian, when he shows Tess not drinking the tea with her in the frame, it's a sign that she doesn't trust Keith. Or when she's outside making the call, but after a look around the neighborhood, she decides to go back and sit in her car, which clearly displays how she feels it's too dangerous to make the call from the porch. These are things we all understand because of the visual narration. Nothing has to be said. We understand the situations. Now, this is a technique that all movies use to some degree, but since horror isn't typically seen as a strong narrative genre, it's usually not as prevalent here to see directors making decisions like this. But now that brings us back to Weapons and the upgrade in visual narration we see from Zach in his latest horror film. Like the one we were just talking about with Alex and Glattis after Alex arrives back home from school, Alex checks Glattis's room first because she's not downstairs with his parents, and we can see furniture piled up in the corner, but Glattis isn't there. Then he goes to his parents' room and Glattis is seen on the floor with her whole ritual setup ready to go. The visual narrative element here is how Glattis made Alex's parents move the furniture for her while Alex was away, and although it's never said, it's seen. Now there's more super obvious moments like this as well, like the reddish paint on the back of Archer's truck, which shows how he was the one who painted the word witch on Justine's car. And then there's more deeply symbolic narrative moments like where we constantly see Marcus consuming junk food in almost every scene we see him in. Narratively, this is Zach's way of showing how something extremely disturbing can walk into the home of someone so ordinary. Junk food is one of the most relatable everyday items that almost everyone consumes to some degree. This one relatable element makes the viewer feel almost like Glattis could just as easily walk into your home and disrupt your peace as well. And since we're already on the subject of visual narrative and symbolism, I should mention how Glattis is always wearing imagery of flowers and the symbolism of Alex sometimes framed with whales throughout the film. So something subtle but deliberate about Glattis is her constant association with flowers. On the surface, flowers symbolize beauty, innocence, and growth, but in her case, they work as camouflage. She's a parasite that steals life while wearing the mask of something pure. This actually mirrors how alcohol itself is often dressed up in the real world as glamorous and harmless, when in reality it can wither families from the inside out. Just like those flowers, Glattis's imagery of peace and joy isn't real. It's borrowed, decaying and hiding something toxic underneath. Then we open Alex's segment with him facing the whiteboard, and in front of him are two categories, parasites and whales. And this is a quiet but deliberate setup positioning Alex in front of two forces that define his story. The parasite embodied by Glattis, and the whale, a symbol of depth, endurance, and the creative weight Zach pulled from his own life. See, Zach has often referenced his admiration for David Lynch, even shaping Glattis's look after the red-haired woman in Twin Peaks' Fire Walk With Me.
So yeah, her look is based off of in Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, when he gets out of the plane and there's that woman on the tarmac, that scared the fucking shit out of me.
David Lynch once said that ideas are out there waiting to be caught, and how if you don't catch them, someone else will. Zach said that he imagines ideas as big big fish under the water.
David Lynch went a step further. He said that ideas are out there waiting to be caught, and if you don't catch it, somebody else will. He says catching the big fish. I like to think you go down under the ocean and there are these big fish swimming around and I can hook them, but if I don't, that story's going to get told one way or another.
So when Alex is repeatedly framed with well imagery, from the design on his backpack to the coat hanger on his wall, and even this opening classroom shot, it's more than just a background detail. Alex, who Zach has already admitted represents himself, is marked by the well as a vessel for this enormous idea. The well becomes Zach's weight of inspiration he pulled from the depths of his own childhood grief and turned into storytelling. And now that brings us back to stage 2, closing out with Glattis telling Alex how he'll need to feed his parents now.
You'll need to feed your parents. There's soup in the cabinet. Tomorrow you'll get some more.
Which is another reference to how a child may have to take care of their alcoholic parents, since them being constantly intoxicated would definitely affect their normal daily functions. And although we won't point out every single one, there are many aspects and references like this throughout the film that point back to alcoholism. Then lastly, we have Alex breaking free in stage 3. I want to pause and give Zach major props for how he used match cuts throughout Weapons. I don't think I've ever seen a film, especially a horror film, rely on them this frequently yet still maintain such clarity. What's really impressive is that the cuts aren't just there for style. He uses them as a way to collapse time and keep each character's story moving without losing rhythm. Within each segments, the match cuts become a visual shorthand, carrying us through long stretches of their journey in a way that feels fluid instead of jarring. It's a subtle technique, but it gives the film a steady pulse, letting us live inside each character's perspective without ever dragging. And I'm really loving this upgrade in his directing style. But now on to stage 3, after Alex is forced to gather his classmates' belongings so Glattis can use her magic and drain the children of their energy. Alex wants to know that if he does this, will she go back home when she gets better? And of course she lies and tells Alex, yes, she will go back home if she gets better. Once again, more lies accompanied by empty hope that one would like to believe under the influence. It's almost like Zach making a promise to his parents that if he'll behave, maybe they'll have a happier family again. And as we already know, the kids are summoned at 217, which if you already know, this is a number that is heavily influenced by Stephen King's work. 217 in the film is already confirmed by Zach Cregger to mean exactly what I'm about to tell you, because I know that there were many theories floating around online surrounding the meaning of 217. But in The Shining, specifically Stephen King's novel, Room 217 is where some of the most terrifying events occurred. That's where Danny, the kid in that film, encountered the ghostly woman in the bathtub. King made 217 the haunted room to anchor much of the hotel's malevolent presence. In Weapons, Glattis summoning the children at 217 works as a direct echo of that idea. The number signals a crossing point where ordinary reality breaks and something parasitic and supernatural asserts control. Zach is a huge fan of Stephen King, so this is him paying homage to his work. But moving forward with the story, after Justine and Archer enter Alex's home and they discover the children, and Alex is finally able to use Glattis' own magic against her by having the kidnapped children literally rip her apart, Glattis is ultimately defeated. And while the children are able to return home to their parents, some never fully return to who they once were. And Alex suffers a deeper loss. He couldn't save his parents. Though they survived, they are left in a near vegetative state, forcing Alex to leave his home and live elsewhere. And this feels deeply symbolic, reflecting what Zach himself endured as a child, the pain of watching his parents slip away, unable to save them, and the bittersweet reality of escaping a destructive environment while still carrying the weight of what was lost. So yeah, he wasn't lying when he said that this film was deeply personal to him. He wrote, directed, produced, and even scored the film himself, meaning that he was one of the artists that produced the music for his movie. So even the instruments and sounds you hear throughout the film were specifically crafted in that moment by him and some friends he was in a band with back in high school, which is another deeply personal element. And lastly, everything gets wrapped up in a nice little bow when you realize that the triangle within the circle, which is a symbol heavily tied to the film, is actually the symbol used for Alcoholics Anonymous. The AA circle and triangle symbol traditionally stands for balance, recovery, unity, and service contained within wholeness. It's a hopeful image tied to overcoming addiction and rebuilding stability. And of course, Alcoholics Anonymous is a real-life peer-led fellowship program to help those with alcohol addiction. But in Weapons, that meaning feels hollow. Alex can't save his parents, who survive but are left in a vegetative state, and the children never return to their old selves. paralleling how addiction and trauma permanently scar those it touches. So Alcoholics Anonymous also has 12 steps, and I think the 6 beside the inverted triangle on the bill marks not only demonic forces, but the halfway point, someone stuck in the middle of recovery and unable to fully break free. When Glattis displays the inverted triangle on her magic bill, it means a lot more than you might think it would mean. It's a reversal of the symbol's meaning. Instead of recovery, it suggests collapse. Instead of unity, it's isolation. And instead of service, destruction. Inverting the triangle transforms a beacon of hope into a mark of evil, or even despair. The hidden message Zach embedded in Weapons, reshaped into one of the most powerful horror films of the year. It feels less like fiction and more like a director confronting his past and turning trauma into art. And that's exactly why, for me, Weapons isn't just one of the best horror films of the year. It's a defining work from one of the boldest voices in modern horror.